When I was video chatting with my boyfriend Cecil in the evening, he didn't answer for a long time. In a hurry, I called his roommate Atticus. He's not in the dorm. He left an hour ago. If you don't believe me, we can do a video call. When the video call was connected, the cold and aloof face of the man flashed by. In the next second, the camera swept over Cecil's empty bed. But I saw my lost dress on the other bed. My cheeks were burning. Atticus, that dress on your bed seems to be mine. Could you return it to me? It took him a while to reply in a low voice, sorry, the dress got dirty. Can I return it to you after I wash it clean? When I was making a video call to Cecil, he was playing billiards with a few buddies in the billiards hall at the school gate. His mobile phone was placed on the coffee table beside him, and the ringtone kept ringing again and again. He acted as if he didn't hear it and didn't even look at it. Iris, who was standing next to him, pursed her lips. Isn't your girlfriend annoying? It's only been a few days since she stopped pestering you, and now she's checking up on you again. Doesn't she trust you? I saw Iris's beautiful side face through the crack of the door. She was leaning on the billiards table, and the tip of her shoe was rubbing against Cecil's sweatpants from time to time. Cecil snorted lightly and raised his hand to rub the top of her head. Don't bring up things that I don't like to hear. You know I'm annoyed. What are you annoyed about? She's so beautiful and gentle, and she only has eyes for you. Many people would envy you. Cecil was casually applying chalk to the cue. But the look on his face was clearly impatient. Envy my ass. Goody-goody girls are the most boring. I told you to break up with her. Iris clung to his shoulder as if she had no bones. You can't bear to stand aside properly. Don't rub against me. Although Cecil was complaining, he didn't push her away. I put my phone back in my bag and didn't call again. Nor did I push the door open to question them, even though I witnessed their ambiguity with my own eyes. I was even numb to the pain in my heart. Iris was Cecil's childhood friend. She was also the only girl in his circle. She could be said to be the center of attention, like the moon surrounded by stars. From the first day I started dating Cecil, she had been full of hostility towards me, and between me and Iris, Cecil would always side with her. A week ago, because Iris deliberately drank from Cecil's cup, when we were having hot pot, they even tasted each other's dipping sauces. I couldn't help but lose my temper. Iris cried pitifully at that time. Cecil got furious with me. Astrid, if you keep being unreasonable, we might as well break up. After saying that, he walked away, while Iris wiped her tears and taunted me. If there was really something between us, what would it have to do with you? Petty, can't play fair, boring. After that unpleasant parting a week ago, I hadn't contacted Cecil for a week. The reason I came to the billiards hall to look for him today was also because Cecil's mother asked me to deliver some medicine to him. Originally, I thought he and Iris were just too familiar and lacked a sense of boundaries. Now it seems that I was too naive. When I was about to turn around and leave, Iris suddenly spoke again. Cecil, what on earth are you thinking? What do you mean, you and Astrid? How long do you plan to keep playing with her? I'll talk about it when I'm tired of her. So you're not tired of her yet? After a while, Cecil just said, Iris seemed a bit annoyed. All right, I also happen to have something to tell you. Go ahead. Introduce your roommate Atticus to me. I think he's quite handsome. Moreover, I like guys who keep a cold face and ignore me. Cecil sneered. I'd advise you to give up this idea. Otherwise, you'll be embarrassed if you get rejected on the spot. How do you know he'll reject me? What if I happen to be his type? You're thinking too much. Atticus doesn't like girls as wild as you. Iris kicked him angrily. What? He doesn't like wild girls, but he likes good girls like Astrid? Then I'll have to get him no matter what. Cecil suddenly threw the billiards cue heavily on the ground. Iris, are you crazy? His lips were tightly pursed, and his eyes were filled with simmering anger. I'm not dead yet. Are you flirting with my brother right in front of me? What does it have to do with you, Cecil? You can date but I can't, damn it, you just can't. Cecil suddenly took a step forward, grabbed the back of Iris's head and kissed her. Iris struggled a little at first. But soon she tightly hugged Cecil's neck and stood on tiptoe to meet his kiss. The two of them gradually kissed passionately and were reluctant to part. Iris gasped and asked, "By the way, does Atticus really like girls like Astrid?" "How would I know? He's always been as ascetic as a monk anyway. Even if he really likes Astrid, so what?" Cecil sounded rather proud. "Astrid only has eyes for me. At most, he can have what's left after I'm done with her." Iris stood on tiptoe to kiss him again. "Then it's also what's left after I'm done with her. Hee hee." Suddenly, I felt like laughing. But I also felt disgusted, extremely disgusted. The only thing I was probably glad about was, since we started dating, there had only been hand-holding, hugging, and brief kisses. Cecil had coaxed me several times to go out and stay with him. I didn't agree. At this moment, many things that were originally unclear gradually came to the surface. It seemed that Iris liked to mention Atticus a lot. Cecil and Atticus were roommates, and on the surface, their relationship seemed quite good. But privately, there was always some underlying tension. So maybe Iris really liked Atticus but was still enjoying the ambiguity with her first love? And Cecil, perhaps deep down in his heart, had always been competing with Atticus. After all, Atticus was indeed better than him in terms of family background and appearance. That absurd thought in my mind was getting more and more out of control. So much so that when I came to my senses, I had already dialed Atticus's phone number. I came to my senses and was about to hang up in a flurry, but Atticus answered on the other side. "Astrid?" "Well, Atticus, it's like this. Cecil hasn't been answering the phone, and I'm worried about him." "Is he in the dorm?" I was so nervous that I stammered that he's not in the dorm. "He left an hour ago. Oh. If you don't believe me, we can do a video call." When Atticus's WeChat friend request came, my mind was still in a muddled state. It wasn't until the video call was connected. His cold and aloof face flashed by on the screen, then, it was aimed at Cecil's bed. The empty bed, without even a wrinkle on the sheet. "Atticus, thank you." I had just whispered this when the video call was cut off. However, when the camera was pointed at Cecil's bed just now, half of Atticus's bed was also exposed. I seemed to see a nude pink slip dress on his sheet. It looked very familiar. Like the one I wore during the school anniversary event. I only wore that dress once and it was soiled by Iris after the school anniversary. Cecil said he would take it to the dry cleaner for me and later he said he accidentally lost it. I wasn't quite sure. But the color was really similar. Even the smear of lipstick on the collar was still there. Early the next morning, Cecil called me. "What did you want from me yesterday? Where were you last night? Why didn't you answer the video call?" "I was sick. I had a headache and went to bed early." I didn't say anything but just pulled out a silent smile from the corner of my mouth. "What, you don't believe me? Why don't you ask Atticus?" Cecil casually handed the phone to the person beside him. Soon, Atticus's voice rang in my ear. Even colder and more aloof than last night. "Yes, he went to bed early last night. Don't overthink it." "Is that so?" I asked in a very soft voice. Atticus didn't answer. The phone was back in Cecil's hands. "Do you believe it now?" I didn't say anything. "Let's have lunch together." "Will Iris be there?" "Yes, it'll be with the whole group of them." "Then I won't go." "You guys enjoy your meal. Astrid, you?" I didn't wait for him to finish and hung up the phone directly. Of course, Cecil wouldn't take the initiative to apologize, and I wouldn't shed tears because of Iris anymore. Out of anger or grievance. In the evening, Iris's WeChat moments started flooding my screen. In almost every photo and short video, she was sitting close to Cecil. Some people liked and commented on them. Iris replied below, "Baby, don't pay attention to those comments. Only those with dirty eyes and hearts would think others are dirty too." Cecil and I have known each other since we were in diapers. It's pure friendship, okay? Secretly tell you, my ideal type is someone like Atticus. This comment was quickly deleted. Maybe she was afraid that Cecil would see it and it would be a lose-lose situation if one of the two boats she was sailing sank. I closed WeChat moments and dialed Atticus's phone number. "Atticus. Astrid, since you're dating Cecil, could you please stop bothering me?" Somehow, there seemed to be a touch of anger in his cold voice. I couldn't help but bite my lip, stimulated by his inexplicable anger. I suddenly had the courage. Well, Atticus, I'm calling you about something else. There was a moment of silence on the other side of the phone. What is it? That is, during the video call yesterday, I saw a dress on your bed. It seems to be the one I lost. Could you return it to me? After saying that, I held my breath. It felt like even my heartbeat had stopped. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe I just saw it wrong. But Atticus suddenly said, sorry. The dress got dirty. Can I return it to you after I wash it clean? There was a buzzing sound in my mind. After a while, I replied in a low voice, yes, please call me when it's washed. That night, I had a whole bunch of chaotic dreams, the kind that would need a lot of mosaics if told. And in each dream, Atticus was shirtless, leaning against the headboard. His honey-colored muscular body was taut and bulging. The veins on his forearm were sexily protruding. He tilted his face up slightly, and his Adam's apple was sliding up and down vigorously. My slip dress was clutched in his palm in a messy bundle. In the end, he called my name in a hoarse voice over and over again. When I woke up from the dream, my whole body was burning. My nightgown was soaked with sweat, the sheet beneath me was a bit sticky. I got up and simply tore off the sheet to wash it. But I also clearly felt something unusual about my body. It was a kind of subtle reaction that had never occurred even when I was kissing Cecil. I couldn't help but raise my hand and cool my face with the slightly cool back of my hand. I must be crazy. Atticus asked me to meet him at the artificial lake. At 9:30 in the evening. There weren't many people by the lake because there were a lot of mosquitoes. He handed me a paper bag and apologized again. There was a street lamp not far away. The light of the street lamp shone high down on the glistening lake water. The light trembled along with the water waves just like the crushed ice in lemon iced tea hitting the glass wall. I took the bag and clenched it tightly. The atmosphere was inexplicably awkward, as if the night wind had stopped flowing. I was just about to say that I wanted to go back. Suddenly, my bare calves felt itchy and painful. I quickly bent down and waved my hands to drive away the mosquitoes. As soon as I straightened up, I got bitten again. I could only bend down again to drive them away. Suddenly, Atticus called out to me, Astrid. I looked up at him, still in a daze. But he had already squatted down and gently held my ankle. It's almost autumn. The mosquitoes are vicious. You should apply medicine in time. The cool ointment melted in his warm palm and was smeared on the red bumps of different sizes. The itchiness and pain were briefly relieved. Instead, there was a burning heat like a fire. The ankle held by his slender fingers, every inch of the delicate skin that had been touched by his fingertips seemed to be trembling faintly. My heart trembled along with the glistening light on the water. I was thinking all kinds of messy thoughts. Why did he ask to meet at the lakeside where there were few people? Why did he carry the ointment with him? Why did he apply the medicine for me directly instead of just giving me the ointment? When he let go of my ankle and stood up. Suddenly, as if possessed by something, I blurted out a question. Atticus, how did my dress get dirty? Also, why was my missing dress on your bed? The mosquitoes were buzzing incessantly in my ears, sometimes far away, sometimes close. I boldly looked him in the eye. The corners of Atticus's mouth gradually tightened. The glistening fragments of light seemed to have also fallen into his eyes. He looked down at me and said, Astrid, what do you think? I subconsciously shook my head and the back of my ears felt hot. How would I know? I'm not you. Maybe you just have some perverted hobbies. Or, do you have a crush on me? Before I even finished speaking, Atticus suddenly grabbed my wrist and pulled me in front of him. I smelled the bitter scent of the wormwood ointment on his fingers. There was also a clean woody fragrance that was completely different from the smell of cigarettes and alcohol on Cecil. I felt a bit dizzy. And in that dizziness, Atticus directly lowered his head and kissed me. Atticus. I just called out his name and my voice was swallowed up by the deep kiss. He gently pushed me under the tree. My back didn't touch the tree trunk but touched his palm instead. The hem of my dress brushed against the edge of his trousers. The bitten places started to itch again. I couldn't help but gently rub my calves. He kissed so deeply that I felt like I was going to suffocate. My legs felt weak. Atticus lowered his head and brushed aside the messy strands of hair beside my ears. My earlobe was gently bitten and rubbed by him and I couldn't help but moan softly. but my moan was blocked by his kiss. Suddenly, Iris's soft voice came from not far away. Cecil, shall we try it here too? You're crazy. This is the school. What are you afraid of? There's a couple over there. Cecil's gaze swept over here and I was startled. Subconsciously, I tightly closed my eyes and pressed myself against Atticus. He lowered his head, his chin resting on the side of my neck, and his voice was low and hoarse. Astrid, don't be afraid. But at that moment, Cecil suddenly spoke up. Damn it, why does that guy look like Atticus? I shuddered all over. I clenched my hands on his sleeves tightly. My heart was beating so fast that it seemed like it was going to burst out of my chest in the next second. Atticus's hot palm landed on the back of my neck, gently soothing me. But I was still extremely nervous. No way. How could it be Atticus? Iris's voice was full of disbelief. Didn't you say that he was always as pure-hearted and ascetic as a monk? Being like a monk doesn't mean he actually became a monk. I don't believe it. Iris seemed a bit excited. I've never heard that Atticus had someone he liked. No girl has dared to chase him in the past 2 years either. Why are you so excited? Cecil sneered. What, Iris, do you really like him? Iris stammered. I just think it's unlikely. Whether it's likely or not, we'll just go and take a look. Cecil pushed Iris aside and walked towards us. Iris was stunned for a moment and then quickly followed. My heart seemed to stop beating for a moment. I suddenly grasped Atticus's arm tightly, but he gently stroked the back of my neck again, signaling me to relax. After a while, Atticus let go of his hand and slowly turned around. He was tall, with broad shoulders, a narrow waist, and long legs. He blocked me tightly behind him. The light was dim and fluctuating, but it was already enough for the two people a few meters away to see his appearance clearly. Cecil cursed softly and smiled a bit awkwardly. Atticus, it's really you. I hid behind Cecil and saw the expression on Iris's face. There was shock, disbelief, and yet it seemed that there was also an unconcealable reluctance. It seemed that my guess was right. Iris really had a thing for Atticus. Atticus. Iris also smiled, but the smile was stiff. Are you on a date with your girlfriend? Let us see which fairy it is. As she said this, she was about to step forward, but Atticus just sneered. It's none of your business. Iris was stunned for a moment and then suddenly bit her lip. Cecil quickly smoothed things over. Yeah, we're quite curious. Which girl is so amazing that she can win your heart? Atticus slightly raised his chin and looked coldly at Cecil. I'm also quite curious. You hugged and kissed her. Does Astrid know about it? Cecil's face suddenly changed. Atticus, it's none of your business. So, who I'm on a date with is also none of your business. Atticus's voice was very cold. It was even colder than that night when I called him to ask if Cecil was in the dormitory. Cecil didn't say anything more. The atmosphere seemed to freeze. Even the dim white moon above hid in the clouds. The buzzing of the mosquitoes in my ears was sometimes far and sometimes near. The unbearable itchiness and pain came back to my calves again. I couldn't help it and bent down to scratch the itchy and painful places. But I almost met Cecil's gaze. I was so scared that I shrank back behind Atticus and endured it, not daring to move again. All right. Cecil suddenly laughed. Let's make a deal, Atticus. Let's just pretend that we didn't see anything tonight. Do you agree? To show his sincerity, he directly dragged Iris away. We're leaving now. We won't disturb you two being affectionate. Watching the two of them walk away, Atticus then turned around. Did you get bitten again? He squatted down, wanting to apply medicine for me. But I took a step back. Astrid, it's very late. I should go back. Apply the medicine first. Atticus held my ankle rather forcefully. I leaned against the tree trunk. It was late at night and it was very quiet all around. But the mobile phone in my bag was vibrating and ringing continuously. I took it out and saw Cecil's name flashing on the screen. I didn't hang up but muted the phone and put it back. Aren't you going to answer it? I don't want to. I lowered my eyes and my voice sounded listless. Atticus glanced at me and seemed to smile self-deprecatingly. Let's go back. After saying that, he turned around first. After taking 2 steps, he looked back at me. I stood still on the spot. I just bit my lip and stared blankly at his back. My eyes gradually became red as if tears were going to fall in the next second. "What's wrong with you?" Atticus walked up to me and asked in a low voice. I shook my head. "Nothing. Let's go back." But as soon as I finished speaking, tears fell down in time. "Astrid, why are you crying?" Atticus grabbed my wrist. I shook it a few times but couldn't break free, and the tears fell even more fiercely. "Atticus." I glared at him through my teary eyes. "It's none of your business. Let go of me. Tell me clearly. Why are you crying? You tell me." I raised my hand and pushed him hard. But no matter how hard I pushed, he didn't move at all. I was so angry that I raised my foot and kicked him. "Who are you to me? Why are you meddling in my affairs? Who do you think I am to you?" Atticus didn't dodge or avoid. He let me kick him several times before pulling me into his arms again. He pinched my chin and lowered his head to kiss me. I opened my mouth and bit him. "Astrid." He hissed but didn't stop. He simply cupped my face with both hands and kissed me even more forcefully and deeply. "Do you think I won't take responsibility after kissing you just now? I don't want you to be responsible." I mumbled vaguely, but suddenly, my tongue was gently bitten by him. "Then who do you want to be responsible? Someone like Cecil, that bastard?" I opened my eyes wide and glared at him. "He's my boyfriend." Atticus pinched my jaw and lifted it up. "While our saliva mixed during the kiss," he said, "he's not anymore starting from now. A few days ago, I sent a message to Cecil to break up with him. He thought I was just jealous of Iris and didn't take it seriously. I didn't explain much. I'm also with Atticus now. However, it's not public yet. For the time being, it's kind of an underground relationship. He was very dissatisfied about this and had a cold war with me for 1 hour and 3 minutes. Then he called me. "Astrid, I can be your boyfriend who isn't made public. But you have to give me a reasonable reason to convince me." I hugged my phone and smiled. "No reason. However, meet me at the artificial lake in half an hour." Atticus was immediately coaxed by me. I hung up the phone, then I changed my clothes and prepared to go downstairs. Cecil called again. I still didn't answer or hang up. After getting dressed properly, I went downstairs and out of the dormitory gate. But unexpectedly, I saw Cecil standing downstairs. When he saw me, his eyes seemed to brighten up. "Astrid." I glanced at him and then continued walking straight ahead without looking sideways. "Still angry?" Cecil chased after me. "I've already told you that Iris and I are just childhood friends. There's really nothing between us." "Cecil, I've also told you that we've broken up." I didn't agree. He sneered coldly. "Besides, Astrid, where do you get the right to break up with me?" I stopped in my tracks. On this late summer night, I only felt a chill rising from the soles of my feet. "You haven't forgotten what your mother told you, have you?" "She told you to stay by my side obediently and listen to me. If I want to be with you, you have to be with me. If I want to break up, then we can break up. After all, your family owes my family so much. Isn't this a reasonable request?" I pinched my palm and my eyes gradually became sore and painful. My mother worked as a maid in Cecil's family for several years. Later, my father had an accident and couldn't be saved. It was Cecil's family who helped pay for the medical expenses and handle the funeral arrangements. My mother was extremely grateful for this. Not to mention that Cecil asked me to be his girlfriend, even if I had no status or was sold to him. My mother wouldn't say a single word of refusal. My mother doesn't know yet that I've mentioned breaking up. If she finds out, I'm afraid she'll go through the whole drama of crying, making a scene, and threatening to kill herself. The best way would be for Cecil to break up with me on his own initiative, but now it seems that his relationship with Iris is probably just a momentary pursuit of excitement. And right now, he hasn't met a girl he likes more. Alright, I'll keep my distance from Iris in the future. Cecil tried to hold my hand, but I shook it off immediately. His expression changed instantly. "Astrid, don't be ungrateful." I was afraid that he might lay hands on me and I'd be the one to suffer. Even if we were really going to break up, it should be in a crowded place. I don't want to suffer in silence because of such a scumbag. I held back my anger and said, I want to go to the lakeside alone for a while, to be quiet and think carefully about our relationship. When I've figured it out, I'll contact you. His eyes were gloomy and unclear. It took him a while to say, fine, I'll give you one night to think about it. Cecil watched Astrid walk away. He always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure it out for the moment. He pulled his thoughts back and lit a cigarette. When he got back downstairs to the dormitory, he happened to see Atticus coming out of the dormitory entrance. Where are you going? Cecil asked casually. Going for a walk by the lake. Atticus replied indifferently. Cecil smirked. Going on a date and kissing your mysterious girlfriend again? Atticus gave him a look. Watch your mouth. Cecil waved his hand. Okay. I won't joke anymore. Hurry up and go. Atticus ignored him and walked quickly towards the lake. Cecil lit another cigarette, walked a few steps, and suddenly stopped. Just now, Astrid also seemed to say that she wanted to go to the lake to be quiet, and Atticus happened to be going to the lake at this moment. Moreover, Cecil suddenly remembered that when he saw Astrid just now, she had deliberately dressed up. It was as if during the early days of their relationship, when their feelings were at their best, only during each date would Astrid dress up so carefully. If she was really in a bad mood because of what happened between him and Iris, where would she get the mood to dress herself up so beautifully? Cecil's face gradually darkened. After a moment, he suddenly stubbed out his cigarette and turned to walk towards the lake. There weren't many people there, and Cecil quickly spotted his target. In the darkest part of the lamplight, a tall guy was pressing a petite girl against a tree and kissing her. Cecil felt as if his blood was boiling, rushing straight to his head, burning away all his reason. He rushed forward a few steps, unable to conceal the anger in his voice. Atticus, what the hell are you doing? Cecil grabbed the guy's shoulders and pushed him roughly to one side. The young couple whose kiss was interrupted looked at Cecil with a mixture of confusion and anger. And when Cecil saw the guy's face, he was suddenly stunned. It wasn't Atticus at all. It was just that the back view looked a bit similar. And the girl he was kissing wasn't Astrid either. Cecil didn't know these two people. He must have been crazy to be so jumpy and see threats everywhere. Sorry, I mistook you for someone else. Cecil cursed under his breath and turned to leave. Damn it, he's crazy. Really nuts. Forget about him. The young couple cursed a few times and then went to another place to be affectionate. Cecil dialed Astrid's number again, but her phone was already turned off. He gritted his teeth and called Atticus again. There was no answer. After a while, Atticus sent a text message. Why do you always show up like a ghost whenever I'm on a date with my girlfriend? Cecil couldn't help but swear and then called again, suppressing his anger, but Atticus' phone was also turned off. He cursed again under his breath. He always felt that there was a surge of anger in his chest, running around aimlessly. But there was nowhere to vent it and no one to vent it on. He could only smash his phone hard on the ground, smashing it to pieces. Atticus took me to the rooftop of the teaching building. He didn't know where he got the key to open the iron gate of the rooftop. The cool breeze blew gently, instantly blowing away the summer heat, but the body temperatures of Atticus and I were rising rapidly. Maybe it was really exciting to secretly date without others knowing. Or maybe it was because he gave me an experience that I had never had with Cecil. I liked the clean and refreshing smell on him. I liked that when he looked at me, his eyes were only on me. Atticus held me by the waist and sat me on the wide railing. This way, we were exactly the same height. When I looked at him, I didn't have to tilt my face up anymore. Astrid, when can we make it public? The wind on the rooftop was a bit stronger, and my hair always got messed up. Atticus patiently tucked it behind my ear again and again. I looked at him, gradually lost in thought. Actually, at the beginning, it was just an approach with a vengeful mentality on impulse, but it seemed that everything went off track after that kiss that night. I didn't expect that Atticus seemed to really like me a bit. Naturally, I didn't dare to think about whether he would despise and resent me if he knew my initial thoughts one day in the future. Atticus? Yes? My eyelashes drooped down, trembling slightly in the night wind. I didn't dare to look him in the eye, afraid that he would see my shame and filth. What kind of girls do you dislike? The really noisy ones, and those who deceive me. I subconsciously clenched my palms and buried my head lower out of guilt, but Atticus then added, "But except Astrid." Atticus? I suddenly raised my head, looking at him in disbelief. Undeniably, at this very second, my heart skipped a beat, but he then raised his hand and gently covered my eyes. In the darkness, a hot kiss fell again. With his other hand, he held my waist, pressing me tightly against him. The summer dress was thin, and I clearly felt the strangeness of his body. The intertwined breaths were also filled with intense heat, and the air became scorching. At the end, Atticus lowered his head, burying his face in the crook of my neck. "Astrid, if this goes on," he held me very tightly, his voice hoarse, "I'm afraid I'll die in front of you." He held me for a long, long time before he managed to calm down a little. On the way back, I couldn't help but smile. When we parted, he pulled me into the shade of a tree and kissed me passionately again. "Astrid, you wait for me. Even if you cry, then I won't be soft-hearted towards you." Cecil called me early the next morning. "How's your thinking going? Almost done? Then let's have dinner together tonight. Who will be there? Just those same friends? Will Iris be there?" Cecil laughed on the other end of the phone. "What, are you still jealous?" "Yes, she'll be there. But don't worry. I promise you that I'll keep a sufficient distance from her in the future. Also, I'll ask her to apologize to you tonight. Then, let's just forget about this matter. Don't mention breaking up again in the future. How about that?" I smiled. "Coincidentally, I also have something to tell you. See you tonight." Cecil thought I was taking the opportunity to smooth things over and was extremely happy. "Then I'll come pick you up tonight." "No need. I'll just go there directly after class." "Let's still meet at the old place." "Yes, the old place." Cecil hung up the phone. Atticus happened to come back from his morning run. Cecil coughed lightly and asked casually, "Have dinner together tonight? Who will be there?" Atticus didn't reject directly, which surprised Cecil again. "Oh, it's just those of us as usual." Atticus gave him a meaningful look. "Astrid will be there too?" Cecil grinned. "Yes, she'll be there too. Buddy, Astrid and I have been getting along well these days. Keep what happened that night to yourself." Atticus nodded. "I happen to be free tonight." "Ah?" Cecil was a bit stunned. Atticus also patted his shoulder. "To get together with you guys. Do you mind?" No, of course not. Why would I mind? It's really rare that you can come." Cecil couldn't help but feel a bit unable to smile. Actually, he didn't want Atticus to go at all. After all, it had been like this since high school. Whenever Atticus was present, everyone else would become mere foils. I had just arrived not long ago. Suddenly, Atticus also came. He had just had his hair cut, and his sideburns were trimmed sharp and stylish. It made his already proud and aloof handsome face look even more imposing. The black t-shirt and the same colored work pants made his figure look especially tall and straight. The muscle lines on his forearms were smooth, with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. Even through a layer of clothes, one could seemingly imagine how sexy those blocky muscles on his narrow waist and abdomen were. The hormonal aura on his whole body was extremely strong, and as soon as he pushed the door open, Iris, who was originally playing around with a few guys, immediately sat down obediently. Atticus' gaze briefly swept over my face and then he sat down in the empty seat next to me. My heart skipped a beat immediately. Iris suddenly looked at me with an inexplicable resentment. I ignored her. Cecil also seemed a bit surprised. He looked at me and Atticus thoughtfully. Iris suddenly stood up with a glass of juice in her hand. "Astrid, I apologize for what happened before." Her attitude seemed extremely sincere. The originally proud and arrogant young lady was actually willing to apologize wholeheartedly. It was a bit surprising. I and Cecil are really just childhood friends. We're so familiar that sometimes we lack a sense of boundaries. But in the future, I'll be careful. "Astrid, don't be angry anymore, okay?" I also stood up. "Yes, I'm not angry anymore." "That's great. Let's have a toast to bury the hatchet. How about that?" Iris said as she took the juice and wanted to pour it for me, but there was no empty glass in front of me. Cecil was about to get one for me. Atticus had already naturally handed his glass to me. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, I reached out to take it and smiled at him. "Thank you." Cecil's face instantly became extremely ugly, and the air in the room seemed to have frozen. After a while, Cecil finally said, "Let's serve the dishes. We're all hungry." After all the dishes were served, two kinds of soup were brought out. One was salty and the other was sweet. Cecil helped me ladle out the sweet soup. Atticus ladled out the salty soup. I picked up the spoon and took a sip, then I turned my face to look at him and said, "Let me taste your salty soup. Then let me taste your sweet soup." He put down his spoon and exchanged the soup bowls in front of us. I tasted his soup with his spoon. He tasted my soup with my spoon. This time, everyone noticed something unusual. Even Iris couldn't control her expression. She stared at me with red eyes, and Cecil threw his chopsticks directly. "What do you two mean?" I looked at him calmly and said, "What's wrong with just tasting the soup?" Cecil sneered angrily again and again. "Astrid, I'm your fucking boyfriend. You tasted this soup in another man's bowl. What do you take me for? And you, Atticus, you've liked to compete with me since high school. Now you're playing this trick again, huh?" I also smiled and said, "Cecil, so you actually understand the reason very clearly." Cecil was stunned for a moment and quickly came to his senses. So, is it still because of that trifling matter that day? Since it's a trifling matter, why are you so angry? It's different. How is it different? She tasted your condiments, and I tasted the soup in his bowl. Isn't it the same thing? Cecil was so angry that his face turned livid. "Astrid, are you never going to stop, huh?" I sneered. "Cecil, you keep making a fuss over such a trifle. Since you're being so unreasonable, we might as well break up. Also, about the money that my family owes yours. I transferred the last sum to your mother's account last night." Cecil suddenly widened his eyes. "Astrid, what do you mean?" "Nothing much. I used my own scholarship and the money I earned from part-time jobs to pay off the principal and interest in full. From now on, my family won't owe you anything anymore." After saying that, I turned around and left directly. Atticus also stood up. He slightly raised his eyebrows, glanced at Cecil and Iris and said, "You're so petty and can't afford to lose. It's so boring." "Atticus, what the fuck do you mean by that?" Cecil was almost driven crazy. Atticus pointed at Iris and said, "Ask your childhood friend." It was said that Cecil and Iris had a huge quarrel that night. Some people who liked to watch the excitement even sent Cecil screenshots of some of Iris's previous remarks, including the comment that she quickly deleted in the WeChat Moments comment section that night, which said, "Secretly tell you that my ideal type is someone like Atticus." It was said that Cecil, who was treated as a backup and a tool to relieve boredom and loneliness, almost laid hands on Iris. The two of them completely fell out. But all of this had nothing to do with me anymore. I deleted all of Cecil's contact information. I also went home and had a serious talk with my mother about this matter. At first, she didn't listen to me at all. She was furious and even slapped me, but later, when she saw how determined I was, she softened. "You don't want the rich young master, and you only care about your damn face and dignity. Alright, you've grown up. You're so independent now that I can't control you anymore. But Astrid, I'll tell you straight. If you regret it in the future, don't come back crying to me. Also, I'm going to marry your Uncle Sue. After getting married, I'll move to live with him. This house will be sold, and I'll keep the money for my old age. You're an adult now and have gone to a famous university. You can support yourself." I understood what she meant. Although I had known for a long time that she would make this decision today, it was still indescribably sad to hear it from her mouth. "I understand. Don't worry. I'll support myself in the future and won't disturb you. Don't blame me either. It's your own fault. Cecil took a liking to you, but you didn't cherish it. This is your fate. You're not meant to be a young mistress in life." I didn't say anything more and turned around to leave the old house where I had lived for many years. Only after walking a long way did I stop and look back. I knew that from now on, I really didn't have a home anymore. There was no relative behind me that I could rely on anymore. After Atticus and I made our relationship public, he moved to an apartment outside the school. Cecil called me from many different phones. He also waited outside my dormitory building several times. Atticus simply asked me to move to his apartment too. The apartment was quite big, with 4 bedrooms. We had always lived separately and didn't cross the line. Both he and Cecil were 1 grade higher than me. When they graduated, drunk Iris suddenly went crazy and came to confess her love to Atticus. I was standing under a tree not far away at that time. Atticus seemed not to see me. Iris was crying bitterly and pestering him. I just don't understand, Atticus. What's wrong with me compared to Astrid? Why do you like her instead of me? Is it because she used to be Cecil's girlfriend? Are you just trying to compete with Cecil and put him down? Atticus shook off her hand again and took a step back. He looked at Iris coldly and with disgust. You're really seriously ill, Iris cried loudly. If Astrid knew about this, do you think she would still stay with you? She's just a poor person who likes to pretend to be noble. Do you know that I hate people like her the most? She clearly has nothing and is inferior to me in every way. Why can she get what I've been longing for day and night? Atticus chuckled. Can't figure it out? Iris cried so much that her makeup was all smeared. I can't figure it out, Atticus. I'll never figure it out even if I die. That's right, if you can't figure it out. If you could figure it out, you wouldn't have made a fool of yourself like this. After saying that, Atticus didn't pay any more attention to her continuous crying and left. When he passed by me, I stopped him. Astrid, why are you here? To take you home. I smiled at him. When I walked up to him, he naturally held my hand. On the way home, Atticus tried to ask me something several times tentatively, but he didn't ask in the end. And I didn't ask either. Everyone has a secret in their heart. Just like I'm also hiding secrets from him. I didn't dig deeper. Because I knew that time would give me the most perfect answer. When I graduated, my relationship with Atticus was already very stable. He took me to his home and introduced me to his parents. I also had meals at his home several times. At the beginning, his parents had some prejudices against me. But later, it seemed that their views changed little by little. I planned to continue my studies, pursue a master's degree and then a doctorate. Atticus supported me very much, and so did his parents. On the night of the graduation party, I drank a lot of wine. When I came back, I was quite drunk. When Atticus went to the bathroom to run the bath water for me, I secretly found that nude pink slip dress from before. The one that Atticus had soiled and then washed clean by himself. It smelled the same as his clothes. I liked it very much. After taking a bath, I put on that dress in the bathroom. 2 years had passed, but the dress still fit me. I thought Atticus would surely like it. Sure enough, when I opened the bathroom door and walked out, he couldn't take his eyes off me as soon as he saw me. At that time, we had just gotten engaged not long ago, but I still felt extremely shy. Astrid. Atticus put down the water cup and walked up to me. I could feel my nervousness. My heart was beating fast and I felt a burning sensation all over my body, especially the back of my neck, which was so hot that I couldn't control myself. Why did you suddenly think of wearing this dress? Do you like it? Of course. Of course what? Atticus couldn't help laughing. Of course I like Astrid. I also like Astrid's little snow pair. He seldom joked like this. I was stunned for a moment, and my face blushed with shyness immediately. Atticus. I glared at him and stamped my feet hard. All right, all right. He laughed merrily. His slightly cool hand landed on my forearm, his fingertips gently stroked the delicate skin. I trembled slightly as if I had been electrocuted. In the brief moment when my mind went blank, as if possessed by something, I blurted out a question. Then tell me now, how did you soil the dress back then? Do you want to know? Yes, I want to know. Atticus picked me up and put me on his lap. The skirt of the dress was a bit tight, so I could only sit sideways on his lap. He held my waist and lowered his head to kiss me. Because I missed you so much that I soiled the dress. Why would missing you soil the dress? I knew I was asking the obvious, but I just wanted to hear him say it. Because when you love someone, you'll have a strong physical desire for her, because physical attraction is the most genuine kind of love. My heart was beating like a drum. Summoning up all my courage, I looked into his eyes. Atticus. I'm wearing this dress in front of you now, so? I slowly moved closer to him and softly hooked my hands around his neck. A warm and wet kiss landed on the corner of his mouth and then on his chin. Then it went all the way down and landed on his Adam's apple that was moving vigorously. You don't have to think of me when looking at the dress. You can, directly make love with me. The moment the last word came out, Atticus leaned over and pressed me onto the sofa. Then came a flood of kisses, falling like raindrops. I was startled at first, but soon, I closed my eyes and raised my arms again to hook around his neck. By the time we got to the bed, the hem of my dress was in a mess, and Atticus was shirtless, with only a pair of loose pajama pants left. It seemed that it was the first time for me to see the body of a mature man so directly. The impact was a bit too strong. Astrid, open your eyes. Atticus held my sweaty hand and placed it on his firm abdomen. It's not the first time you've touched it. Why are you still shy? But he was dressed before when I touched him. I pursed my lips tightly, extremely shy yet couldn't help looking. His abdominal muscles were neatly arranged, his mermaid line disappeared into the loose waistband of his pajama pants. Do you want to see the whole thing? Atticus tightened his grip on my sweaty hand and placed it on the waistband of his pajama pants. I suddenly closed my eyes. Atticus, he bent down to kiss me, but the movement of his hand didn't stop. The sleeping volcano had been ready to erupt for a long time, as if it would erupt in the next second. In my mind, I vaguely remembered the messy dream that lasted all night long a long time ago, and the strange feeling in my body after waking up from the dream, and at this moment, the dream and reality overlapped. I felt my throat was very dry and kept swallowing saliva. The hot magma of the volcano melted the glacier. It turned into continuous spring water. Wherever the spring water flowed, everything was full of vitality. Atticus's kiss landed on the side of my face that was blushing with spring. Astrid, I've liked you for a very long time. Unfortunately, you were someone else's girlfriend at that time, but when he carelessly threw away your dress, that night when I received your call, I knew that one day, you would be mine. Atticus's. I closed my eyes and nodded slightly with a smile on my lips. Sure enough, time gave me the most perfect answer. In exchange, I'll tell him my secret on some night too. The end.